You think no contact is the thing that changes everything, but it's not your silence that hits the hardest. It's the moment you stop volunteering your soul to a pattern that was feeding on your confusion. You think disappearing is power, but here's the flip. The real shift happens when your silence is no longer a strategy to get noticed and becomes proof that you finally noticed yourself. And if you need consistent reminders like that, subscribe to this channel. Not because I need your click, but because you need clarity when your emotions start rewriting the truth at midnight. You need something stronger than impulse. You need something stronger than nostalgia. You need a voice that reminds you what your pain keeps trying to make you forget. Here's what this really means. The biggest misconception is that distance matters because it makes people miss you. That's the fantasy. That's the movie in your head. That's the ego looking for a dramatic return, a delayed apology, a perfect realization from someone who could not see your value when you were standing there in front of them. But the hard truth is this: distance only matters when it gives you the room to see clearly. Silence only matters when it interrupts your addiction to chaos. Detachment only matters when it stops you from negotiating your dignity for temporary relief. That's the real thesis, not how your absence affects them, how your absence reveals you. Because some of you are not practicing no contact, you're practicing hidden hope. You're not letting go. You're waiting with your phone face down, pretending you don't care while your nervous system is on guard like a soldier in enemy territory. You stop texting, but you don't stop checking. You stop calling, but you don't stop imagining. You stop reaching out, but you don't stop rehearsing what you would say if they came back. That's not peace. That's called psychological attachment with better branding, and that's why it still hurts. You want the truth? It hurts more than your silence when you finally become unavailable to the version of yourself that kept accepting less than you deserved. That's what breaks the pattern. That's what ends the cycle. Not your vanishing act, your standards. Not your quiet, your self respect. Not the performance of detachment, the discipline of detachment. There's a difference. One is waiting to be chosen, the other has already chosen. Read that again in your mind. One is waiting to be chosen, the other has already chosen. The reason so many people get trapped here is not because they love too deeply. Let's kill that lie right now. It sounds noble, but most of the time it's not depth. It's dependency. It's not loyalty. It's fear. It's not a beautiful heart. It's an undisciplined attachment system trying to turn scraps into meaning. You're not suffering because you care. You're suffering because your identity got tied to being needed, being validated, being pursued, being repaired through somebody else's attention. That's the root cause. You made another person the mirror, and now without that mirror, you feel invisible. You made another person the permission slip, and now without that permission, you feel uncertain. You made another person the emotional center of gravity, and now without their pull, your whole inner world feels unstable. That's not love. That's called self-abandonment dressed up as connection. And yes, it's painful to hear. Good. Some truths are supposed to sting because comfort has been lying to you for too long. You keep asking why their distance hurts so much, why their coldness burns, why their inconsistency stays in your chest like a weight you can't put down. It's because every time they pulled away, it touched the wound that was already there. The wound that says, maybe I'm not enough. The wound that says, maybe if I try harder, I can earn what should have been given freely. The wound that says, if I can just get this person to finally show up, then maybe I'll finally feel chosen. But people do not heal that wound by stepping into your life. Most of the time, they expose it, and exposure is not healing. That's why running back to the same dynamic never brings peace. It only brings temporary sedation, a text, a call, a breadcrumb, a little warmth, a little chemistry, a little false hope, and then what? The same confusion, the same anxiety, the same overthinking, the same collapse in your standards, the same sleepless analysis, the same emotional math where you keep trying to calculate value from mixed signals. That is the consequence. You lose your center, you lose your time, you lose your edge, you lose your ability to hear yourself think because you're too busy listening for footsteps that may never come. And the longer you stay in that state, the more expensive it becomes, not just emotionally, spiritually, mentally, practically. Your work suffers, your focus fractures, your body carries stress like unpaid debt. Your days become reaction instead of direction. Your mind becomes a courtroom where every memory is evidence and every silence is a verdict. No wonder you're tired. You're trying to build a future while secretly kneeling before the past. So let's reframe this the right way. Silence is not a weapon. Distance is not revenge. Detachment is not a game. These are tools. Tools for awareness. Tools for regulation. Tools for returning to reality when fantasy has made you weak. You do not go quiet to control someone else's emotions. You go quiet so you can hear your own. You create distance not to make somebody panic, but to stop yourself from performing for unstable energy. You detach not because you became cold, but because you became honest. Honest about what drains you, honest about what distorts you, honest about what keeps you begging for crumbs when you were built for more than survival. That is where your power is, not in making someone miss you, in refusing to miss yourself. That's the line. That's the shift. That's the standard. Because once you understand that, your behavior changes. You stop treating every emotional impulse like a command. You stop confusing chemistry with compatibility. You stop romanticizing inconsistency. You stop interpreting bare minimum effort as hidden depth. You stop chasing closure from people who benefited from your confusion. You stop calling pain passion. You stop calling anxiety intuition. You stop calling your inability to let go a sign that this was special. You stop, and then you start. You start sleeping on time. You start training your body. You start rebuilding your routines. You start reading things that sharpen your mind instead of replaying messages that weaken it. You start protecting your mornings. You start finishing what you begin. You start becoming somebody whose mood is not decided by another person's inconsistency. That's growth, not the fake growth where you post a quote and still stalk the old pattern in private. Real growth, quiet growth, unimpressive to the outside world, revolutionary to your nervous system. Let me tell you about the person who understands this, the person who embodies these principles, the person people can feel before they can explain. That person is focused, grounded, disciplined, not loud, not desperate, not running around announcing their boundaries while violating them in secret. This person does not need to win every emotional battle because they are no longer fighting for cheap validation. They are steady. Their peace is not for sale. Their attention is not available on demand. Their standards do not collapse because somebody suddenly remembers they exist. They walk differently because they are not dragging the weight of unfinished self-betrayal behind them. They speak differently because they are not using words to audition for worth. They love differently because they no longer confuse intensity with truth. They are not perfect, let's be clear. They feel, they miss, they get triggered, they remember, but they do not worship their feelings. They do not let emotion become authority. They let truth lead. They let discipline decide. They let self-respect cast the final vote. That is the person you are becoming. Not hard, not bitter, not numb, clear. And clarity is dangerous to every pattern that once survived on your confusion. Ask yourself the question you've been avoiding. What actually hurts you more? Their silence or the fact that you keep abandoning yourself every time it happens? What cuts deeper? Their distance or your habit of running toward anyone who makes you doubt your value? What drains you more? Losing them or losing your structure, your sleep, your discipline, your self-trust in the process? Be honest, because your healing will begin the moment your honesty becomes more important than your fantasy. So here's what you do now. You stop feeding dead patterns with live energy. You stop reopening wounds just to confirm they still hurt. You stop chasing explanations from people whose behavior already gave you the answer. You stop handing your peace to anybody who has not earned access to it, and you start redirecting energy with precision. Put your attention where it can multiply. Put your effort where it can build. Put your emotion where it can mature into wisdom instead of leaking into obsession. Clean your space. Fix your sleep. Move your body. Tighten your schedule. Write down the truth when the lie gets loud. Call things what they are. If it was inconsistent, call it inconsistent. If it was one sided, call it one sided. If it kept you anxious, call it destabilizing. If you kept shrinking to keep it alive, call it self abandonment. Definition creates distance. Distance creates clarity. Clarity creates power. And power, real power, is not loud. It does not beg. It does not chase. It does not panic when something leaves. It evaluates. It adjusts. It continues. That is the energy you need, not how do I make them regret losing me. Wrong question. Ask, why was I ever willing to lose myself just to be kept around? That question will change your life because once you answer it, you stop trying to become unforgettable to people who were committed to misunderstanding you, and you become undeniable to yourself. That's the win. That's the freedom. That's the part nobody can take from you. Understand this clearly. Some people will only feel your value when they no longer have access to your energy. Fine. Let life teach what your words could not. But that is not your mission. Your mission is not to produce regret in others. Your mission is to produce alignment within yourself, to become so internally clean, so emotionally disciplined, so rooted in self respect that you no longer need to manipulate distance because you genuinely outgrow dysfunction. That hurts more than silence. Your growth hurts the pattern. Your standards hurt the pattern. Your calm hurts the pattern. Your refusal to perform old pain hurts the pattern. Not because you are punishing anybody, because you are no longer participating. And when you stop participating, the illusion dies. That is why this chapter matters. This is not about becoming unavailable to the world. This is about becoming unavailable to what degrades you. It's about becoming allergic to confusion. It's about building a life so structured, so intentional, so self respecting that unstable energy no longer feels exciting. It feels exhausting. It feels beneath you. It feels obvious. That's maturity. You don't need one more sign. You don't need one more conversation in circles. You don't need to decode delayed replies, mixed signals, half efforts, temporary warmth, or emotionally convenient returns. You need to decide that your life will no longer be organized around uncertainty. You decide. You decide what gets access. You decide what deserves your time. You decide whether your emotions run the day or your principles do. And if that sounds hard, good. Easy is what kept you stuck. Easy is checking the phone. Easy is replaying memories. Easy is opening the old wound because pain is familiar. Discipline is harder. Structure is harder. Self respect is harder. But harder builds a different life, a real one, a peaceful one, a life where your attention belongs to your future, not to people who trained you to survive on emotional leftovers. So when the urge hits, do not ask what they're thinking. Ask what you're tolerating. When nostalgia shows up, do not assume it means return. Sometimes nostalgia is just withdrawal from a pattern that no longer gets to feed on you. When loneliness rises, do not rush to the nearest distraction wearing a familiar face. Sit still, feel it, let it burn clean. Let it teach you that discomfort will not kill you, but dependence will destroy your standards if you let it. You are not here to be emotionally managed by everybody who enters your life. You are here to stand. You are here to see. You are here to choose. And if you've been waiting for a sign to stop begging for clarity from places that only give confusion, this is it. If you've been waiting for permission to become more disciplined than your cravings, this is it. If you've been waiting for the moment to stop calling yourself betrayal love, this is it. This is the day you stop measuring your worth by who stays confused about it. This is the day you stop making your heart a public utility for people with no structure, no consistency, no depth. This is the day you return to yourself fully. Because in the end, the truth is simple. The silence was never the point. The point was the awakening. The point was the standard. The point was the moment you finally realized that your greatest pain was never someone else leaving. It was you leaving yourself to keep them. Not anymore. Now you hold the line. Now you protect the center. Now you build a life that does not collapse because one person failed to see you clearly. Now you remember who you are. You are not the one waiting to be chosen. You are the one doing the choosing. You are not the one begging for closure. You are the one creating it through action. You are not the one searching outside for the answer. You are the answer. And if you want more truth like this, more clarity like this, more discipline and growth and reminders that pull you back to yourself when emotion tries to drag you off course, subscribe and stay close to this channel. This is where you come when you're done being ruled by confusion. This is where you come when you want the truth, even when it stings. This is where you come when you're ready to grow, ready to reclaim yourself, and ready to stand with people who are choosing self respect over chaos.